Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
Why Myles Garrett is a bigger odds mover than Aaron Donald. Did the Yankees fans honestly believe this team would be this good? And why the Texas Rangers may look like geniuses for taking Kumar Rocker at number 3.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. The NFL season just 50 days away now, so of course we're partnering up with BetOnline to list their top 50 most valuable players that affect the line. So it's a little bit different than some of the other lists we've been seeing out there, but nonetheless, we are releasing our first 10 names today. So we want to go over some of them. I'm joined by Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On NFL and Locked On Ravens, of course, because we want to talk this out a little bit because some of these names are not necessarily ones that people might expect would affect a betting line, but two defensive names we've seen on our list. We have Myles Garrett at 47 and Aaron Donald at 48. So Aaron Donald is just like a human beyond sort of a human. Like he's a beast out there. So to think that he doesn't affect the game as much, where do you think those kind of statistics might come from?
Yeah, it's interesting. And these guys, in terms of this list in particular, super, super close. And also just generally both athletic freaks, guys who can impact the game in so many ways. But when I look at the Browns defense and the Rams defense, I think when you take out Myles Garrett from the Browns defense and you take out Aaron Donald from the Rams defense, personally, I trust the Rams defense a little bit more than the Browns defense at this point, just because of the star power they have. Jalen Ramsey would still be there. They signed Bobby Wagner too. They still do have some questions on their defensive line and outside linebacker with the departure of Von Miller. But I think that those two stars themselves, plus the other depth, can impact the game in so many ways. If Donald were to be taken out, that's the impact that Donald would have. Whereas for Garrett, they still have Jadeveon Clowney on that defensive end outside linebacker group, but some questions in the secondary, how it will all mesh together, some talent all around. But I think when you're looking at the most valuable player, when you're talking about betting lines here, I think that for Myles Garrett, he just has the slightest more impact in terms of what he would leave behind. But with Donald, it's still such a close list where I feel like I trust the Rams defense just a tiny bit more. So it could flip-flop either way, but I understand why the list is like that.
The Super Bowl champs are certainly stacked, so I'm sure that helps them out a little bit there in terms of betting. In terms of the offensive side of the ball, we got a wide receiver and a tight end. Both of them used to be on the Chiefs. Now Tyreek Hill is in Miami. So how is that kind of affecting when he goes to a team now where he's maybe the home run hit and Travis Kelce will have a lot more pressure on him? How do you think that affects their play in terms of where they are on our list?
Yeah, it seems like for me, there could be definite arguments for Kelce moving up on the list a little bit just because of the loss of Tyreek Hill. That the Chiefs added a ton of different playmakers at wide receiver. You have a couple of huge names, Juju Smith-Schuster comes in, a couple others too. But Travis Kelce with Tyreek Hill now in Miami is going to have so many more opportunities to where if you take him out of that offense now, it leaves Patrick Mahomes, I think, whereas if he was still with Tyreek Hill, you say, all right, he still has Tyreek Hill, that's okay. But now you're relying on a couple of other names where I think for Tyreek Hill, him going to Miami, them having Jalen Waddle there and a couple of their very talented playmakers, that's a team that I think could really exceed expectations. I think there are clear arguments for Kelce to be a bit higher on the list, but Hill is such a dynamic playmaker himself too, where, again, it's such a close line between those. And you also have to take into account the position as well. Tight end, what's the value there? Wide receiver, what's the value? I think, again, it's a lot harder in this league now to find a very high-quality Travis Kelce level tight end. Obviously, that's near impossible at this point. Yeah. So I think for what Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce bring, you can make arguments for both, but I might have Kelce a little higher on the list.
Certainly, especially because when you look at Tyreek Hill, obviously he's very dynamic. We've seen what he's been able to do in Kansas City, but he's going to Miami where, people have questions about whether Tua can get the ball to him, right? So how does we're going to see a lot of more quarterbacks come in on this list, but how do you think the wide receiver value affects things when a lot of it does depend on another player in terms of the QB?
Yeah, it's a big question because a lot of people look to, especially with quarterbacks, their weapons around them. Obviously, the quarterback talent's very important, but you look to a player like Joe Burrow, who himself is a great quarterback, but has Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. So if you were to take Jamar Chase out, you say, all right, well, T. Higgins is still there, Tyler Boyd is still there. But then you look to another player, we can use Kelsey as an example, who's not necessarily a wide receiver, obviously, but again, now they're looking at Juju Smith-Schuster, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and a couple other players. So I think the value of just the depth that a quarterback has around them is very important. But all these players, I still think the key part is, even though one is ranked over the other, they're all still super talented. They all made this list for a reason. So if you take any of them out, it's going to impact the team that they're on and make them, I think, the ceiling at least cap it off a little bit.
Now, we haven't gotten to many QBs at this point in our list, but Lamar Jackson gets left off every other list. Why do we think that is? I have to check in with you because I just need an opinion on this and some explanation of what this is all about.
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer, but I think part of the reason, and the reason that I've kind of gone with, is that the NFL that we've seen is a "what have you done for me now lately" league. It's a lot of, all right, what has this guy done recently? And for Lamar Jackson, I think what people are remembering is the back half of the year where he didn't really play super well, starting against Miami, got injured, missed the rest of that season, about 4 games, 5 if you want to count the game he got injured in. And that's, again, the lasting image in people's minds, where I think people are, again, they're forgetting that at the beginning part of the year, he had this team at 8-3 with all the injuries they had, the number 1 seed in the AFC. And he was in the MVP conversation himself. He had that game against Indianapolis where he barely threw any incompletions, led that team to a comeback. So I personally think Lamar Jackson is a top 10 quarterback in this league. I think he's firmly in that conversation. But again, you see players on that list and you think, well, why couldn't Lamar Jackson be on there? I think it's just because people see what he did last year at the back half with the struggles. And a lot of it had to do with injuries. But I think people see the stats and everything and just think about what that was and ending up saying, well, we're going to leave him off for now and see what he can do. I personally put him on there.
Subscribe to Locked On NFL for our NFL Top 50 Most Valuable Players list in conjunction with BetOnline. Each day this week, we will count down to the most valuable player in the NFL. You can find Locked On NFL everywhere you get your podcasts, including Odyssey. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, what worries Yankees fans after an impressive first half season of baseball. Here's what to look for on BetOnline, your number 1 spot for your gambling needs. The Home Run Derby has a few interesting lines coming up tonight. No surprise, as the back-to-back defending champ Pete Alonso is the favorite. BetOnline has his odds at winning at plus 200. The guy right behind him, Kyle Schwarber, is at plus 350 to win it all. Schwarber gets the nod for biggest favorite to move on from his first round matchup. BetOnline likes him over Albert Pujols with the odds at minus 350. The favorite to hit the longest home run is not Alonso or Schwarber, though. BetOnline likes National slugger Juan Soto to hit the longest bomb with the odds at plus 350. BetOnline, where the game starts. Sunday, we saw a stunner at St. Andrews for the Open Championship as Cameron Smith notched his first major tournament victory. He rallied from 4 strokes down to beat Rory McIlroy, thus blocking McIlroy's shot at ending an 8-year major tournament drought. Smith also matched a major tournament record by shooting a combined 20 under. Dustin Johnson, who is now with the Live Invitational Series, last shot 20 under in 2020 at the Masters. Smith, the Aussie with a mullet, has now won 3 tournaments this year and is the second-ranked golfer in the world behind Scottie Scheffler. The rest of the season is uncertain for the Red Sox pitcher Chris Sale after he was hit in his pitching hand by a line drive on Sunday. With 2 outs in the first, Aaron Hicks hit a 106.7 mile per hour line drive that fractured Sale's pinky on his throwing hand. Though the play resulted in a RBI single that extended the Yankees' first inning lead to 3-0, the Red Sox fear that they may lose Sale for most of the remainder of the season. Red Sox manager Alex Cora was hopeful after the game that Sale would return at some point later this year. The champions of the NBA Summer League are the Portland Trailblazers. Brandon Williams fired off 22 points as the Blazers beat the New York Knicks 85-77 for their second Summer League title since 2017. Portland made 7 3-pointers in the second quarter to help build an 11-point lead at halftime. Trendon Watford scored 19 points and grabbed 7 boards to earn the game's MVP honors. And on the diamond, we close things out. The Baltimore Orioles enter the All-Star break at 500.
Well, the Orioles were not able to make a 10-game winning streak a 13-game winning streak going into the break. In fact, they lose Sunday 7-5 and do drop the series to the Rays. But hey, big positive out of this. Your Baltimore Orioles are at 500 at the All-Star break in 46-46. I'll take that every single time. Now, Sunday's loss was definitely tough after a really exciting win on Saturday. You just can't go down 6-0 and win a lot of games. And I know the Orioles have won games this year when they've trailed by 6, but it's hard to do it a lot. And Jordan Lyles, he loves to eat innings for the boys, just did not do it today. His shortest start as an Oriole, 2 2/3 innings, just clearly didn't have it. He gives up a 3-run homer to potentially the worst hitter in baseball right now, and Brett Phillips. That's going to do you in, no matter how much the Orioles really impressively fight and clawed their way back into this game to get it within 2, but ultimately fall on Sunday. I'll recap all of the weekend's action in the worst stadium in baseball, the Trop, coming up on Monday's episode. Plus, of course, we'll talk about the Orioles' 4 selections they make in the draft on Sunday.
Finally, we've made it to the All-Star break, so we have to check in with Locked On Yankees. Stacey Gotsulias with us because they've had the best first half I've seen in quite some time. And we're talking about a team that's like 5-5 in the last 10 games. They're not even playing that well right now, but they were so far ahead that they're just is there any concern for you at this point? I mean, what's most impressive about what they've been able to do?
I'm impressed by the fact that, they've had a few major injuries to the bullpen and they've been able to overcome them. They've also not had major injuries to the lineup so far, and that seems to be helping them a lot too. And I said it before the season started that health was going to be a big thing for them, but no one expected this. The double-digit lead is big enough, but the fact that it's unbelievable. 64-28 at the break. No one expected that, least of all me, and my co-host will tell you that.
A good, pleasant surprise for you guys. Obviously, the injuries we'll try to leave that out of it. But going forward, what do you think the biggest thing would be to hold them back in the second half, or something they need to work on if there's anything at this point other than just staying healthy?
Nestor Cortez turning into a pumpkin. He had a couple of rough outings of late, but he rebounded nicely in his last start. And he was doing more of the stuff that he did in the beginning with his deception and the weird leg movements and everything that was kind of tricking batters in the first, 10 starts that he made. And if he keeps that up, that'll be good. Jameson Taillon rebounded this weekend, and, he did really well against the Angels, lasted 8 innings, and then he had a run of bad starts, like 5 or 6 starts where he could barely make it 5 innings. And I think those 2 guys are the big key. Not worried about Garrett Cole. Luis Severino's injury doesn't help, but they have Domingo Germán coming. So I feel like going into the trade deadline, I'd like to see another starter. I don't know if they could do it, but I think they need to shore up the pitching rotation. Offense will come around. Okay.
When you look at these numbers that they've been able to put up, obviously in terms of their record, is there anything else you kind of have your eye on with, season-wise record, home runs, something they could break that we can look forward to?
I'm amazed by the run differential because going into the All-Star break, it is plus 199. And, those couple of games against the Reds, the first game against the Red Sox, the run differential was just 1. And then the final 2 games before the break, they outscored the Red Sox 27-3, and that just bumped them way up to almost plus 200, which that's an insane number for a run differential. And yeah, I think Judge, I don't think he's going to pass Maris, but, could be good to see him maybe pass his 52 that he had in 2017 and maybe get 53 or 54. We'll see how that works, but that's a number to look out for.
Okay. Is there anyone at this point? I know we're really far out from playoffs and obviously a lot can change, but is there any team that really kind of you have your eye on that would be difficult for them in terms of a matchup come postseason time?
The Astros. Always.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not worried about them regular season wise. they have 2 games against the Astros coming out of the All-Star break. And even if they lose them, I'm fine with that because the Yankees are doing so well against the division. And that's what really matters when it comes down to making the postseason. But yeah, postseason matchup, it's always the Astros. They're always the ones that worry Yankee fans. And then in some cases, Yankee fans want to face them because they'd like to exact some revenge at some point against the Astros.
Stacey will keep you up to date on the Yankees and their path to the playoffs. You can catch Locked On Yankees everywhere you get your podcasts, including Odyssey. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube as well. Coming up, Kumar Rocker may be risky, but he may also make the Rangers very, very good. There are risky picks, and then there is Kumar Rocker. Many teams considered him undraftable based on medical reports, but the Rangers feel confident in their pick at number 3, as Lindsey Crosby of Locked On MLB Prospects and Jeff Ellis of Locked On Guardians point out on the Locked On MLB Draft live show.
The Rangers got the medicals for Kumar Rocker, and the deal came into about $2 million under slot. So it's something where I just find it really interesting that he went, like we were discussing, where in the first round does Kumar Rocker go? And then there he goes, he drops in at number 3. Is that too high for Kumar Rocker? Do you think the $2 million savings makes it worth it? And do you feel better since they got the medicals for him to go ahead and make that pick at 3?
No, because plain and simply, even if he was Kumar Rocker of a year ago and 100% healthy, he wouldn't be the 3rd best player in this class. So for me, I just look at this as like, even the Kumar Rocker that we saw a year ago wasn't worth being the 3rd player in this class. And yeah, $2 million is a nice amount of savings, but Kumar Rocker, that still means he's getting $5.59 million. That's a big chunk of change for a guy who, he fell to 10 last year for a reason. That was before the medicals. Like, he's not a clean prospect. So yeah, they see the medicals. Yeah, that made them feel better, but it still feels like an overdraft and an overpay. But maybe I'm just being too negative here. What are your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think that he's shown the talent. And for me, the question was medical. Was he healthy? Did he know? And it's a very interesting situation as far as comps. Like, when you watch him pitch, I very much think of like an Alex Manoah type, where big bodied guy throws a ton of strikes. And I'm just I like the pick. I think it's interesting that you have now Rocker and Leiter. I'm still not 100% sure if I'm cool with it being at number 3. Like you said, it is still $5.5 million. And there's something there that scared the Mets away from giving him an offer at all last year. And we know the Mets aren't afraid to spend money. So as of now, I like it. And I think I like it because I don't have the big concern that I had, I think has been covered. But I ultimately don't think we have a final answer on this in a good, 3 to 5 years. We just don't necessarily know what's the health of that arm going to do long-term, that elbow, that shoulder. And so what happens from there?
Now, it's certainly easy to say that was a risky pick by the Rangers, but this is the MLB draft. This isn't the NBA or the NFL where these players come in and make an immediate impact. Most of these guys are going to spend several years. In fact, the average is 4 years in the minors before they even make it up to the big leagues. So technically, everybody's really a risk at this point in the MLB draft. The Rangers taking a flyer here, if you want to call it that, and hopefully going to develop him and look really good at the end of things. And finally, over the weekend, one of baseball's mega stars got added to the trade block just in time for deadline season. Juan Soto, who will be competing in tonight's home run derby, reportedly turned down a 15-year deal worth $440 million. That contract extension coming from the Nationals. Reports then indicated Washington is now going to listen to offers for the uber-talented outfielder. Whether or not another team can put together a satisfactory trade offer remains to be seen. One thing that is certain, the Nationals will not get back another Juan Soto in any trade that they make. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make that your second listen. Coming up tomorrow, what surprises lurk in our NFL Top 50 rankings? At least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.